Okay, we're here looking at the FLIR M300 series thermal imager. This specifically is which model?
364 CLR. So it's the long range model. It's got a 18-degree field of vision versus a 24. Basically, what that means is you're obviously going to have a narrower field that you're going to cover when you zoom right in. So it gives you much more detail at range. The first part of, or the first aspect of it, is the low light color camera. As you can probably see from the photo, we're just going to use the JCU2. Gives a real nice smooth control of the screen even at high zooms, and it's actually got 30 times optical zoom, so you can zoom right in. You can even go further if you want to pixelate it, and you've got seamless control from that point. As you can see there, there's just a bird just tracking across there. But yeah, when you zoom back out, it gives you great definition. There's a few different features with that. What we've actually got turned on currently is we've got both the wide dynamic range and the contrast enhancement. As you can see, when we peel those back, you're getting a different layer of light come through. We have got it in the automatic low light mode, but that will obviously change as the night rolls on. This just gives a higher contrast, means that you can see the differences between the vessels a little bit better, obviously in the distance.
If we could just have a look at this headland over here.
Yep.
So if we zoom in over, let me use your controller.
Yeah, we'll just use the controller, it'll be easier.
So I just want to give the folks, once we get onto that headland there. So it looks like it's reasonably close, but just to show you where it is, if you look through that far in the distance, that's the headland over there, which is a distance about 5 kilometers from us now. Okay, so that's really a regular style camera. What about if we go over and look at the thermal aspect?
Sweet. So the other aspect of the 364C is that it's got a dual payload, so it's got a thermal camera in it. It is a when it loads.
There we go.
Sweet. So
maybe if you just take us back to the take off any filtering.
Yeah, we'll turn everything off and we'll start from the get-go. So basically what you have is a higher resolution thermal camera than what the standard M232 is. Basically what that offers you is, if we were to pan around here, what you'll actually see is you're getting a much more enhanced definition on the vessel itself, as opposed to if we were to come over here with the 232. So similar vessel, you can see pretty much the definition around it is very much different, and that's just the double in the resolution from 320 to a 640 pixel. In addition to that, what they've actually been able to do is that within the thermal and the visible light dual payload, they've got a few roam marine only features currently. The blending mode, you've got color thermal vision and MSX. First of all is color thermal vision. What that basically is it's a thermal and visual overlay, and what you can actually do is you can isolate the color. It gives a real nice image. Obviously looks a lot more like what you'd normally sort of expect, but it also means that when you're in situations where there's low light, what you can actually do is you can pick up navigational markers, whether they be port and starboard by the red and green lights on them. So it basically means that you can navigate a lot easier.
So a point to clarify that you need to have a dual payload system.
Yep.
To have that feature, to have the camera aspect, and you need to have some form of natural light to be able to get the colouring in there.
Yeah,
but
for sure. But and again, it has to be on a roam marine only display. So basically, what that means is that, for example, if you guys had a buoy or a marker or something that had a light on it, even in pitch blackness, when that light flashes, that colour would then
you'll see the green or the red.
Yeah, correct.
Or the white.
Yeah, so great for navigation, great for obviously picking up buoys and markers, etc. And also to see running lights on boats. So whether you have the port light on the right or left hand will obviously tell you if the boat's coming towards you or moving away from you, so helps with that navigation aid from that aspect. In addition to this, there's MSX.
My favourite feature.
Yep. So basically what we'll do is we'll just go back to thermal. So what you'll actually see is that there's not necessarily a massive difference in temperature between the boat and obviously the water and on the horizon. So you can see there's a boat there, but you kind of have to really look for it. When you physically go and turn MSX on, what it actually does is it uses the visible light camera to basically put an edge around each shape.
And this is currently a Raymarine only feature.
Yep, correct. And then what you basically are doing is you're actually seeing the outline of the boat, and then obviously the buoys in the background, etc. as well.
Maybe you could bring us around the corner here to show us on the wharf. Here we go.
Yep, so just as we...
And what I like is the horizon. It shows up nice and clear.
Yep, so you can pretty definitively mark that horizon mass in relation to it.
Now something else we can't really show today because this is Dunedin weather at its finest, grey sky. But the great thing about thermal images is obviously navigating into sunstrike. Sometimes fishing vessels, you've got a lot of vessels manoeuvring in a tight area altogether, and sunstrike can be a real issue. But being thermal-based technology, unlike the optics of a regular camera, it's not affected. So you effectively will not have any blinding. The skipper can use the thermal imager to navigate the vessel.
Same thing in pitch blackness as well. Thermal literally relies off that. It relies off heat of objects. So even when you compare it to, completely like a new moon, something like a new moon, when you've got cloud coverage in that, you'll be able to see pretty much as clear as day. Whereas if you're using something like third generation night vision or something to that nature, that still requires some light to obviously detect an image, but you'll know exactly what's there. You'll see it as clear at night as you will in the day. And that's one of the great features of it.
Maybe something else we could look at is just some of the colour options and show us why you changed those colour options on the...
So we'll just swap back to the 364, the higher resolution. Just makes things look a little bit prettier and clearer. So this is white hot. This tends to work quite good when we've got conditions such as we do today. The white hots, the red hots, etc. Just scroll across. So you can sort of clearly mark out with the different scales of grey. Obviously all of this also depends on what your physical tendency is with vision as well. Obviously some people struggle seeing with red, but red can be quite beneficial when you're operating dusk and dawn. You don't want your night vision to be affected. Something like fusion's quite good for showing up when there's quite a big heat disparity. It means that basically what you can actually do is you'll get real nice high contrast definition for obviously picking up those small changes. Every colour palette has an inverse, so if you want to see this is obviously fusion, you're seeing heat is light obviously. If you wanted to go inverse, it's just going to basically inverse that colour palette, so it's basically just changing the contrast and you'll see stuff that's obviously slightly less. Fire ice is one that I quite like. What it actually is that when you have things like I've operated at night when it's like a cool night, you can actually see the difference between the hull and the water. Obviously at the moment we're a bit skew because we've got plants which are sort of skewing what we're seeing, but we generally have found that when you're operating, you'll actually see the vessel on the water as being the higher contrast colour, and then the water itself being lesser. So it makes
that could be handy with picking up floats.
Yeah,
that's exactly. On the water.
Yeah, and obviously navigating through your floats and stuff of that nature. So navigating through mooring buoys, etc., it tends to be the higher contrast that like it.
And sandbanks, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as the visible light's concerned, if we shoot back here, so pretty much from this field of view, what you'd normally see is this would probably be what you'd be expecting to see normal vision. Most people would have maybe a 7x50 or 10x42, so that's probably about 10 times. That would probably be likely what you'd expect to see with binoculars, that sort of range. Obviously if you've got a bit of swell, sometimes it can be quite hard to obviously control the binoculars and account for that, so you can't necessarily always do that. But if you had a fine day, for example, you can go much further than what you would normally.
bit of a challenging day. Just while you're doing that, one thing I was going to mention, obviously the 300 a key advantage over its little brother, the 200 series, besides the resolution, is the stabilization. So is there anything you'd like to say on that?
Yeah, so the difference between them, basically what they do is they rely on the Raymarine Augmented Reality AR200 module that provides electronic stabilization for both cameras. The difference between that and obviously the M300 series as a whole is that the M300 series has mechanical gyro stabilization as well. It's a much bigger housing, but it's got an internal AHRS sensor, and basically what that does is that helps to account for the pitch, yaw and roll of the boat, and obviously try to keep the image on as much as possible. We've got it on top of our camera. It's constantly updating to try get a better picture for us.
So in terms of, one of the advantages also with the gyro stabilization is tracking features, so you can track off MARPA targets, you can track off AIS on the augmented reality, etc. Maybe if you just want to show us, do we have something we can demonstrate there, roughly how she would look?
We'll give it a go. We'll just have to do a bit of zooming out to get the horizon line set. So basically, with augmented reality, it is a Raymarine only feature. Basically what you do is you set where your horizon point is. So at the moment it's probably currently down here, that's why all the targets are off there. You get things like navigational markers that comes from your chart card. You get waypoints, so where you drop your last cray pot, where you started your last string, spot X, etc, etc, where you put divers in the water, and then you also get AIS targets. So as currently set up on the screen, we've just got navigational aids. These are actually the ones out in the back. That's just because the horizon is down. You can adjust that at any time. Basically what you can do is you press and hold on any target that comes up. You firstly have a track with camera. Basically what that means is that the camera will track to that target, stay fixed on that target until you move off it. So if you are pivoting around in a man overboard situation, it keeps your camera fixed on the physical person in the water. The other good thing about that is when you actually integrate it with your chart, what you actually have is you get the cone of where the camera is facing on there in relation to your boat. So if you've got a man overboard and that's pointing behind you,
maybe can you show us quickly a man overboard situation, how easy that would be? So what are we pressing?
So basically with these screens, it's just, look, hold on, press and hold. And basically what that does is you can see the cameras are just naturally tracking now. We're currently stationary, so it's going a little bit haywire. So
no matter what the skipper does now while he's getting the vessel set for the rescue, the FLIR stays tracking on that, that man in the water.
That is a Raymarine only feature. So it's dangerous, it's man overboard, it's dangerous MARPA and dangerous AIS targets. So that's defined by what your settings are.
And that's because of the Raymarine software, but also because of that augmented reality sensor.
Yeah, correct.
So
the other thing is that it's pretty easy to turn on and off. Basically you will be under your camera menu. You just have to go in, camera menu. You just have to go to camera motion. Here's where you set your height above the waterline and your forward position, and you just need to enable auto tracking. And basically when you have those alarms come up, it will obviously take over and the system will be solely focused on the dangerous task at hand rather than what you previously had it on. Again, if that's not a feature you want, you can turn it off, but I can't think of a situation where you don't really want to know where the man in the water is. Other than that, the auto stabilization, you've got both axis, that's the mechanical version, and then you've also got something like a surveillance scan. So if you wanted to obviously pan an area looking forward just to sort of see what was out and around you, if you're,
sweep a wedge in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. You've got three different levels. Narrow is about 30 to 45 degrees, medium's about 90, and then wide's obviously about 180 degrees. And that will obviously scan that area continuously until you tell it otherwise.
In the sweeping mode.
Yep. The other great thing that has it is it's got a heater built into it, so it helps to deal with those cooler mornings. And then you've also got a whole bunch of other features. You can flip the images vertical, you can mirror the views, you can do all sorts of quite cool features with it. Here's where you go into the augmented reality and it sort of just runs through. Do you actually want to hide AIS targets? Do you want to hide the static ones? A lot of the time there's a lot of AIS stuff that can show up on the screen, make it quite hard to see, but a lot of the time they're actually just sitting at dock. They're of no harm to you, they're not actually in the way, they're just clouding it. You just switch on hide static targets and then any vessel at rest will not show up in there.
Very handy.
And then obviously you set your range limit, whether you want the compass on the screen.
So something that's quite clear is that you have great flexibility in terms of options, whether you want to have something that's basic, so provide you. Some people may just want thermal, or may just want a camera. Some people may want more. They may want dual payload, and they may want all those options in terms of integrating with AR200. So you do have the flexibility, combining the FLIR MT232 or the 300 if you want all those advanced tracking features with the Raymarine display, to provide you with a really advanced solution.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, augmented reality, you may think that it's out of the grand scheme of things because you need a thermal camera. It's not. Raymarine do a range of IP cameras. They're fixed mounted, and you can show the exact same thing as, I need to set it up, height above the water. We're at about 10 meters. We calculated it to be on top of the caravan. Direction's about right, field of view's about right, horizon position, so we can adjust the horizon position here. That probably looks about right. We're just pinging it off where the land is. Obviously this camera's on a bit of an angle just on where we're parked, so we just pick this point where the land meets the water, and we just focus in on that, get that as close as we can.
So you'd normally install this fixed camera in a bow aligned fashion, so it's looking straight across the bow?
Yeah, you can do. Otherwise, you can do it at the rear. Some people may have a forward cabin, and instead of constantly turning around behind them, they may just want to keep looking forward and have that behind them. Same with off the side. But basically, what you can see is you've got your AIS targets here. You obviously can't track with the camera. The option is still available
if it's a fixed camera.
A whole bunch on there, but you can do things like view the AIS data. So, obviously, if there's an IMO number. If you need to know what a speed over ground is, course over ground, etc., that's all in there as well. So it's a very intuitive tool.
Yeah, integrating different technologies just to make it easier on the skipper.
Yeah, exactly. Navigational aid and making that awareness easier is what the task is. But it starts at that level with the AR200 module, which is a relatively cost-effective solution for most boats, and then it builds up from there. So then you can go to a 232, which is a basic thermal, and then you've got the M300 series, which starts with a visible light only, that 30 times optical zoom, and builds up to the dual payload and the long-range model at the highest end of the spectrum.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for your time.
No worries. We'll catch you guys later.